Alright, it's showtime.
Batman Gotham Knight is an animated anthology created by Warner Brothers and animated by many renowned Japanese studios. It tells various stories from Batman's early years, and it's particularly notable for its connection to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, filling in gaps of events that took place before Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. The shorts explore Batman's battles against Gotham's crime families and the aftermath of the Arkham Asylum prison break. While its canonicity in the Nolanverse is debated, it shares many elements with the trilogy, making them hard to separate. In this video, we'll construct a hypothetical timeline to create our own lore for the Dark Knight universe, a what-if scenario that ties these short anthology stories to the wider Dark Knight universe. Oh, what's this? Oh, it seems like I've been invited to an extravagant pool party hosted by Marvel Strike Force, the sponsor of this video. It looks like I get to assign roles to certain characters. Cosmo will undoubtedly be the life of the party, and Deadpool is the BBQ master. I'm sure he's a fantastic cook. Marvel Strike Force is a squad RPG you can play on your mobile devices. The game lets you choose from various Marvel superheroes and supervillains to battle each other to save the universe from cosmic threats. Pick your favorite character from the Marvel universe, especially ones that will work well together. Power them up using various leveling methods, and engage in the game's cinematic and fast-paced combat system. The action sequences are incredibly immersive thanks to the game's superb graphics and visuals. Recently, Marvel Strike Force has become the host of an extravagant pool party featuring numerous Marvel characters, with Wolverine and Deadpool as the star attractions. Celebrate the release of Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine by scanning my QR code or clicking on the link in the description and using the promo code MUTANT to unlock Deadpool and Wolverine for free, alongside 500 power cores and 5 premium orbs. Additionally, you can unlock a new Wade costume inspired by Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine by participating in this month's pool party event. Thank you to Marvel Strike Force for inviting me to this party.
You need to leave.
What? I just saved you from...
Nothing, Bruce. Like the Fakirs, they would have grown tired of their game. They would have left on their own. You, though, must be sent away. It's time. You've learned what you wanted to, haven't you?
Within this hypothetical timeline, the first event to take place is present in the story Working Through Pain. After Bruce Wayne leaves Gotham City after his confrontation with Falcone, we're told he traveled the world in order to understand the mind of criminals and how they operate. According to Gotham Knight, at some point in Bruce Wayne's travels, he'd volunteer as a doctor at some point. Here, after Bruce Wayne's encounter with a patient who went through excruciating pain, Bruce looks for ways to master pain. Perhaps through learning these techniques, he can overcome his past trauma as well. Bruce would eventually travel to India, where he'd train under a master who taught him very secret techniques to suppress pain. However, in the end, Bruce is kicked out. Although he mastered physical pain, he was yet to master self-control, as his emotional pain was a wall that could not yet be overcome, leading him to be recruited by the League of Shadows.
Sir, give me your hand.
I can't.
You won't believe where I've been.
Hell with that. You won't believe where I've been.
Nuh-uh, Mom beats all y'all.
Have I Got a Story for You explores a group of kids who all had run-ins with Batman on that day. One describes seeing Batman fight a black figure near the docks, and here Batman is described as a shadow creature who appears and disappears on a whim. Another story details Batman, now a flying creature, fighting the same figure in the skies of Gotham City. One tells the story of Batman, who was now a robot, fighting a figure on a skyscraper, and the last account shows Batman fighting the same figure in a skate park before taking him into custody. Now there's plenty of details we can piece together about this story.
Everybody knows he don't ever kill nobody.
It's established that Batman does not kill anybody in this world, meaning that he's been operating for a couple of weeks or months at this point, at least enough that his no-kill rule has become established.
Yes, you could have. If you'd have listened to me. If you stood up against corruption, instead of doing your deal with the devil.
Now comes the third story, which is actually set pretty close to the events of The Dark Knight. I say this because in The Dark Knight ARG, we hear about how the GCPD has established the Major Crimes Unit.
Police Commissioner Loeb lobbied City Hall to create an elite investigative unit solely dedicated to solving the major crimes plaguing Gotham City. The request was granted on the condition that the unit was to be led by an officer with an exemplary history of duty and the proven ability to get the results.
The Major Crimes Unit is a task force filled with supposedly trustworthy police who have yet to be bribed by any criminal organization. In the Gotham Knight story Crossfire, we follow two members, Anne Ramirez and Chris Allen, who have to transport the Man in Black back to Arkham Asylum. Now Ramirez does appear in the films, and we can speculate that it's the same character because of their last name and similar appearance, although their full names may be different. However, Chris Allen doesn't show up, meaning that something must have happened to him. Now this Batman story actually sets up multiple pieces of lore details that become important in The Dark Knight. There's currently a mob war being fought by Batman, Maroni, and a figure named the Russian, which Batman is currently dealing with. Now since Gotham Knight is stylized, Maroni looks nothing like his film counterpart. However, the same can be said for the Russian. We can speculate that this character who appears in The Dark Knight is the Russian, since we never hear his name. We can't exactly say that it's not the same person. In The Dark Knight, it's established that after the events of Batman Begins, Batman spent a year dismantling the entire mob, explaining what Batman was doing during the events of this film and subsequent films after this. Maroni's encounter with Ramirez at the end of the film could explain why he'd eventually use her as a mole.
You're MCU, aren't you? Gordon Squad. Lieutenant Gordon is a good judge of character.
The confrontation also presents a piece of tragic foreshadowing, as although she wanted to do good, eventually she'd fall to corruption.
Because she trusts you. Just like Rachel did.
I didn't
You didn't know what they were gonna do.
After Ra's al Ghul's attack in the Narrows, two key events took place. One, many criminals escaped the Narrows after the Arkham Asylum breakout, with many still at large in the wider Gotham City, including Scarecrow. According to the film and Gotham Knight's novelization, the Narrows and Arkham Asylum have basically been turned into Arkham City. Criminals now roam the entire island, as the Narrows itself has become asylum grounds. Gotham City, as a result, has completely locked off the Narrows from the rest of the city, with armed guards now patrolling the perimeter to make sure no criminal escapes.
Welcome back, Jacob.
Field Test explores two central plot points. Bruce Wayne attempting to prove that Ronald Marshall got an activist killed by hiring a mercenary named Deadshot to kill her. And intercepting a mob war between Maroni and the Russian, while donning a new batsuit that uses electromagnetism to deflect bullets. The short story also provides a significant amount of lore details to flesh out the plot. Despite the mob fighting in plain sight, Batman cannot put them behind bars since he has nothing on them. So Batman's goal is to essentially keep order between the two criminal groups until he can eventually find the evidence to take them down and dismantle their network for good. This ceasefire that Batman forces upon them could have also led to the two forming an alliance in the Dark Knight.
This one's different. A predator.
This story details a series of kidnappings orchestrated by an urban legend known as Killer Croc. Croc was a boy born with a skin condition that gave him a lizard-like appearance, eventually ending up as an attraction at some kind of circus. We can speculate that due to some kind of trauma, he'd eventually file his teeth and become a cannibal, roaming the sewers of Gotham City, eventually becoming known as an urban legend. Killer Croc's murders would eventually land him in Arkham Asylum, where he'd eventually escape during the events of Batman Begins, and would proceed to become a henchman of Jonathan Crane. It seems after Scarecrow escaped Arkham Asylum, he'd begin hiding in the sewers of Gotham, forming a cult of some kind, but also selling his fear toxin among different criminals, which is also brought up in The Dark Knight.
Look at drugs, teach my customers.
Buyer beware. I told you my compound would take you places. I never said there'd be places you wanted to go.
And in case you're tempted to try and track me with it, don't bother.
There's a strange tension between the two, like both of them don't completely trust each other, and even Gordon seems to be cautious of Batman's presence. According to the Dark Knight novelization, Batman and Gordon do have an established relationship, but there's a form of distrust between the both of them, and Gordon even withholds important evidence and information from Batman because of it. The film ends with Batman still being unable to completely trust Gordon, but the end also leaves plenty of loose ends, such as Killer Croc still roaming the sewers of Gotham, and Scarecrow and his gang escaping, eventually popping up again in The Dark Knight.
Another happy customer.
In a last-ditch effort to get rid of Batman, the Russian hires a legendary mercenary and sharpshooter named Deadshot to get rid of him. Deadshot actually does a pretty good job against Batman from a far range, but once Batman closes in, that's when he stands no chance whatsoever.
What about escalation?
Escalation.
We start carrying semi-automatics, they buy automatics.
What I love about Gotham Knight is that it plays into the escalation problem Gordon established. Because of Batman's presence, villains are much more frequent and elaborate, with the mob also hiring international mercenaries. This escalation problem is what would eventually lead to the hire of figures like the Joker.